If budgeting makes you feel overwhelmed, ashamed, or panicked, you're not lazy, you're anxious. And financial anxiety isn't a math problem, it's an internal safety problem. Today, I'm going to give you a simple budgeting system for traumatized brains so you can rebuild your financial first floor without spiraling. I avoid my bank app. I know what I should do, but I hesitate. Budgeting makes me feel trapped. I start strong, then quit. These are some of the common symptoms for people who were raised in a traumatic environment when dealing with their finances. Unfortunately, in this day and age, finances carry such a heavy value, and unless you were taught or given the tools to properly leverage finances on the behalf of you, your family, and your calling, can be very overwhelming. Good news is there is always hope. And these symptoms are easily overcomable once you understand the math. And it's not just the math about money, it's the math about you. Because if right now you're bad with money, money is objective. It has no emotion, it has no feeling whatsoever. The one with the feelings, thoughts, desires, doubts, fears, is us. And so, bad with money does not mean bad with money. Bad with money means heart, mind, soul, out of alignment, ignorant or lacking information, or traumatized. And we can work to get to the point to where your money is in alignment with your mission. Hey guys, my name is Thomas Emmanuel Orms O'Brien. I'm the president and founder of Building a Home, Inc. I'm also a suicide survivor, a former drug addict and alcoholic, a rehabilitated liar, currently in the pursuit of psychology degree, and for the last 20 years, I have been studying the ins and outs of psychology, neuroscience, and religions from all over the world. Now, we always make an introduction of ourselves because we understand that our verbiage is unique to us. And we like to do things with architectural forward thinking. What does that mean? Our motto, life is like a house. Life cannot be lived passively. To build a life, a good one, it must be done with intention. And it must have a plan. Without a plan, life is just chaos. It has no meaning, it has no direction. Especially for people who were raised in traumatic environments. At BHI, we believe that every single person on the planet has the opportunity to live a whole and fulfilled life. Not a perfect life, but a whole one. And so we've reverse engineered collapse and suffering and identified the 7 areas in which a human being needs to not only just survive, but thrive on this side of life. And so, we are also a theistic company that believes in the universal force of love expressed as God through the person of Jesus. Now, we're not religious, and religion is defined as thus: when man defines God for you, versus relationship is when God defines himself to you. Big distinction there. Regardless, we pose that life is like a house, and you must build, just like anything else, from the ground up. And so, Your foundation must be love and truth. Why are those synonymous? Because love without truth is tolerance, and truth without love is brutality. Now we must ask ourselves, why do we require a foundation of love and truth? Well, it makes it simple. Because every single human being on the planet is subconsciously or consciously, if you're a little bit more self-aware, always asking and seeking the answer to these two questions. Who am I? And why am I here? And that is the universal human pursuit. And if you can answer those two questions, well, I would describe that as something akin to heaven. Because then everything has meaning and everything has purpose. So we start with love and truth. The pursuit in those two questions must come from a place of love. Why? Because when you ask what's real, what's matter, what matters? Well, you might think to yourself, what is a common human experience for every single person that has ever been born and that will be born? Suffering. Pain. Pain is a requirement to being human. And if there is only one thing that goes above and beyond the realest thing, which is pain, and resolves it, which is love, then love is the most powerful force in the universe. Beyond the galaxies, beyond the stars, beyond quantum physics herself. Pain, being the realest human experience, resolved and healed by love, makes it the most real thing we have. And you pair that with truth, because truth is what is measurable and observable through science in the universe. With nothing to ground us to reality, then truth can become whatever we want it to be. And that's not loving. For we've seen the history of mankind, what happens when men or women deviate from truth in love, in the pursuit of truth without love, without exclusivity. And that only breeds death and destruction. That's the first facet of truth. The second facet of truth is my truth. But unlike other people in our generation, not putting anyone down, the definition of our truth is not our opinion. It means what's true about you, me. Our worst fears, our greatest pain, our highest dreams, our farthest imaginations, all boiling down to the most important question: what's your favorite food? Now, I make light of it, but the truth is, that's reality. What's observable and measurable in science, and what's true about you. And when you do those two things and you pair them together with love, you have the capacity to change the world. Change yourself, change your family, change those who are in proximity to you, change your community. And when that change happens over and over and over again, the world can be changed. And so it starts with one, with you, with me. The next thing is the basement. This is the quiet work where most of the public eye does not see. And the basement is identity and integrity. Because if you were to believe in the God of the universe, expressed as the universal force of love in creation, then you also inherently would have a design, a purpose, a destiny beyond, something above and over survival. And so we believe that identity can not only be discovered, can be received, and it is unique and tailor-made for each and every single human being on the planet. Because the greatest thing that you can do is be you. And we pair that with integrity, because integrity would mean once you know who you are, or in discovery of who you are, you would live out who you are to the utmost of your capability every single day. That would make you an integral or integritous individual. You are who you are meant to be on the discovery or on the journey of becoming who you were meant to be 100% of the time. And that's something special. What the world calls being genuine, keeping it a buck, keeping it 100, is just identity and integrity. Who you are and your actions backing up who you are every single day. So when you have love and truth as your propulsion system, your identity and your integrity defining you, that brings you in to the first floor of the house, which is health, both physical health and financial wealth. Because when love and truth is your foundation, you will take care of your body and you will steward your finances. Very, very important. Because what that does is fuel you for the next step, which the second floor of the house is vocations, or your purpose in life. And we define the expression of vocations in a few different ways, but it is discovered within these 4 categories. Number 1, your calling in life will always be tied to the worst thing or things that have ever happened to you. Why? Because if pain does not have redemption through healing, nothing is worth it. It's all meaningless. And if everything is meaningless and nothing has purpose, especially pain, then we should all just stop living right now. And so your greatest pain is someone else's ultimate healing, when you become the master of your own suffering. Number 2, your childhood dream, the person or thing that you wanted to be before you experienced trauma. Thirdly, is in service to others. You will always find fulfillment when your greatest pain, your childhood dreams, are in service to others. And lastly, most importantly, you bring who you are into what you do. This is a big distinction, because a lot of times people receive their identity from their work, not the other way around. And why does that fail? Because if your work happens to fade or you can't do it anymore, you also die along with it. And so you don't receive identity from what you do. You bring who you are into what you do. And then next, you have the attic, which is simply joy or hobbies. And the way we define that as the things that you love doing with the people that you love doing it with. Because make no mistake, the science is clear. A trauma therapist, psychologist, and a brilliant neuroscientist by the name of Dr. Stuart Brown, he wrote the book called Play. In it, he says The opposite of play is not work, it's depression. And so, just like everything else, because life must be intentional, you must schedule joy in your life. It is a neurological requirement, not an option. Next, on the side of the house, we have the chimney, which is release, forgiveness. Because what does a chimney do? It lets all of the smoke from the fire out of the house. And if that chute is closed soon enough, smoke will fill the house and suffocate everyone inside it to death, including yourself. And so, you must release. And we define release in this way: letting go of the people and things that do not serve your purpose in this life. And it doesn't have to be some dramatic thing. It can just be that you do not need those people or those things to become the person that you were meant to be. Plain and simple. Lastly, we have the skylight, which is wisdom or divine perspective, and it illuminates every room of the house. It is understanding and knowing why everything has happened to you in the way that it did, to point you into its ultimate purpose, which is redemption for mankind. Wisdom in of itself is the capacity to discern information and application of that information. For example, everyone can classify a tomato as a fruit. That's information. Wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. And so, when you start to go on this path, and you go through suffering, you go through pain, you work towards purpose, you steward your body, you steward your finances, it all comes together into one ultimate purpose: restoration. And if every human being on the planet was working towards restoration in their own life and in the lives of others, we would have heaven on earth. And so today, our video is breaking down into a few different categories. The first floor, of course, which is finances and physical health. And we're going to talk about stability, stewardship, endurance. The next placement is in the basement, of course, which is identity and truth. So lies about worth, scarcity, and safety. Number 3 is the skylight, or wisdom, clear choices, and long-term clarity. So, what I want you to take away from today's video is this, and if this is all you take away, great. Budgeting isn't control, it's clarity. So why financial anxiety makes budgeting hard? And we want to identify the root causes, because chaos in your finances is a symptom of something that is going on within. John Maxwell, one of my mentors in life, he says it plainly: either you are leading your money or your money is leading you. And when you're able to identify those root causes within yourself, you're able to get your finances with clarity. Because we have a saying here at BHI: clarity brings awareness. Awareness brings options, and options bring opportunities. Basically, what that means is you can't fix a problem unless you know what it is. I myself, being a person that was raised in a traumatic environment, growing up, coming from a broken home, I was not taught how to steward my finances. If you've been here before, you know that I had a very abusive biological father, and that my gangster but heartbroken, desperate, and surviving single mother didn't always have the chance to sit me down and talk to me about important things in life, because she was working 3 jobs to pay the bills. And so, what happens when you lack education as a child is you still lack that same education as an adult, and you make choices as an adult that have negative outcomes. The good news is that what was trained in your childhood can be retrained in your adulthood. Your past does not have to define your future. In fact, your past can empower your future to do great and amazing things. Make no mistake, while I grieve the younger version of myself, I am thankful of every single thing that happened to me. It took me a long time to be able to say that sentence, because I've been experiencing tragedy since I was 3 years old. That was my first negative human experience, where I had a sexually inappropriate interaction with an older family member. And it just went downhill from there. Until I was 27 years old, and I decided that God and everyone else must have created me for a parody. And that my suffering was going to be perpetual, and no matter how bad I wanted to not be who I was going to be stuck there forever. But I made an attempt, and I survived. And when you come face to face with death, your perspective changes. I realized in that moment that if I was alive, which I ran an algorithm and predictive survivability much, much later, I had a less than 1% chance of surviving my suicide attempt. So basically unrepeatable. But if I was alive, my life had purpose. If my life had purpose, I understood God as love. And through love, for the remainder of my life, my purpose would be to go on the journey of discovery as to who I am and why I'm here. That's why I sit in front of you today. But like I said, there are some root causes as to why someone who comes from a traumatic background is not that great with their finances. And I wasn't. I was living paycheck to paycheck for a very long time. Very irresponsible, making lots of different mistakes. And now, my wife and I are doing very well. We're on a budget. We have a plan in place, and we're on our way to be very financially healthy. Now, make no mistake, it takes hard work, and it takes time, because financial health at BHI is described in 3 things. Number 1, which is our topic of today, getting on a budget. Number 2, being debt-free. And number 3, investing for the future. And each of those has subsets of subsets, and we could talk for hours and hours on why all of those are important. But today we want to address perhaps why you are struggling with money, why I certainly was struggling with money. And the good news is always that there is hope for the future. And so number 1, instability trained your nervous system. The prime time for neurological development of every human being on planet Earth. No exceptions whatsoever. 0 exceptions. It is in the data, and we've had this observable data for thousands upon thousands of years. Recently confirmed by the best neuroscientists the world has ever seen in the last 250 years of brain study. That is, if you did not experience love, safety, and consistency from the in utero to 12 years old, your brain is literally different than everyone else's. What do I mean by that? Your amygdala, which is your threat center, the mammalian part of your brain, which governs fear, survival, is enlarged. And your prefrontal cortex, which is logic, reasoning, hopes, dreams, planning, is shrunken. And so by default, your fear, your threat center, has more control over your decisions than your prefrontal cortex does. And all these people out there, they just want to scream at you and say, well, do better. What's wrong with you? Well, unless you know, you can't put in the work to get it changed. There is also another beautiful thing about the brain. It's called neural plasticity. You have the power to remap the current design of your brain into a new one. New input causes new growth, causes new thinking patterns, causes the capacity to change. And so, if money was unpredictable growing up, your brain learned numbers equals danger. I saw my mom struggling to pay the bills. I saw my delinquent biological father not pay the bills. He would lose house after house after house. Not only was he an alcoholic, but he was a gambling addict. And outside of being a gambling addict, he was a former felon. And so his patterns, his ways of doing things, on top of being sociopathic, and mind you, he himself was a highly abused individual in his childhood. So he was doing the best he had with the cards that he had been dealt. Now again, another sentence that takes maturity and a lot of work. I could not always see that from a healthy perspective. But here's the problem. The bar was only a few inches off the ground. So, even though my grandfather, his father, was way more abusive to him than he was to me, regardless, the truth is the truth. May he rest in peace. It is what it is. I saw chaos, death, destruction when I lived with him, and I saw struggle, responsibility, and discipline when I lived with my mother. Regardless, though, very poor. And even at one point, when I was 11 years old, we ended up homeless. I lived with my biological father in his car for a very long time. After we were out of his car, we slept in office buildings at the jobs that he was able to get. The kicker is, in the state of Florida, where I live, it's illegal to be homeless with a minor. So that's a whole other story, but regardless, no money, sometimes food, the same clothes, the same backpack in school, the same shoes. So when I say if money was unpredictable in your childhood, your brain learned numbers equal danger. So when I became an adult and I started to make money, I had no idea what to do with it, except one thing: spend. Incessant spending. That brings us to number 2. Shame, no matter what form it comes in, makes you avoid. And this isn't just in finances. This is in every facet of life. When a person feels shame, they reduce, they hide, they run. So, of course, if shame is something that you deal with, and especially if you're ashamed about your finances, ashamed about your financial decision making, you're going to avoid your finances. And so avoidance feels like relief, but in the long run, it compounds stress. To eat the elephant in the room, you must start one bite at a time. It's a famous quote I heard. The best way to kill your demons is to turn around and face them. The definition of fear itself: face everything and rise, or face everything and run. The only difference between a fearful person and a courageous person is the courageous person, filled with fear, decides to go on anyway. It is not an absence of fear that makes someone courageous. It is the behavioral decision to continue pushing on even while afraid. Number 3, traumatized brains hate open-ended decisions. So when someone says save your money for your future, you say, my future? I can't even figure out who I am. Why am I here? I can't even figure out how I feel half the time. I can't even figure out my purpose in life. And you want me to save for the future? Well, if the future looks like how I feel and what my current reality is now, hell no. I'm going to spend and live it up, because tomorrow I might just die. And so, too many categories, too many shoulds, not enough safety. You have to understand that getting your finances under control is a byproduct of getting you under control. And understanding that you can emotionally distance yourself from money. It is just a tool. It only has value because society decided it has value. We understand that. It's 2026. Everyone wants to be rich. If you ask a poor person, would you rather be rich? Would you rather be poor? Some people might say, hey, no, I like being poor. But if you're someone who's plugged into society, who understands that finances are a tool, that it can help fuel your mission and your purpose in life, then certainly you would want your finances under control. Number 4, a scarcity mindset turns budgeting into punishment. There are two sets of mindsets. There are two mindsets any one human being can have regarding money. There is what's known as the scarcity mindset, and there's what's known as the abundance mindset. Now again, just like everything else that we're talking about, money is just one facet of those lines of thinking. And so you feel like you're grounding yourself, not guiding yourself. Because when you have the scarcity mindset, you don't have love, truth, identity, integrity, hope, purpose, joy, wisdom, a plan, a direction. You don't even have the capacity to be a forward-thinking person. Makes it very, very difficult. Because again, it's open-ended, which is uncertainty. Uncertainty in anyone's brain, traumatized or no, is fearful. But certainty is not a guarantee in this life. Nothing is certain. So because nothing is certain, except death and taxes, is what they say, right? You have two options: positive response, negative response. And the negative response never helped anyone truly live. The positive response is the only way to stop surviving and start thriving. Number 5, when you're anxious, your brain seeks comfort now. Instantaneous gratification as opposed to delayed gratification. This is part of the profile of any traumatized person. If I don't have relief now, I won't have relief later. I won't have relief tomorrow. I won't have relief a week from now. I must feel better now. If I don't feel better now, I'm gonna die. Which, let me tell you, I understand that. I understand that more than anyone. And so that's why you must go to the root, which is your pain. Face your pain. And if you can't face it alone, face it with God. Face it with family. Face it with people you trust. And if you have no one, you have us. We will help you face your pain. Now, we're not clinicians. We don't diagnose. But, as Dr. John Deloney said, one of the most prolific trauma therapists, psychologists in this generation, grief needs a witness. We are honored and privileged to face your pain with you. And once you've started facing your pain, you can then build habits, systems, plans, blueprints for a healthy financial future. So impulse spending becomes self-soothing. Mine was tied to a few other things. I would impulse spend on food. So I doubled down. And that caused me to be obese and overweight with lots of health problems. I've lost a lot of weight since then. I'm at the gym. I'm eating right. We have a grocery budget. Excuse me, I almost coughed there. Let me wet my whistle. And the wife and I have a date night every week. Where again, discipline. And so here's what I want you to understand. If your first home wasn't safe, your bank account won't feel safe either. Cannot have one without the other. Now, does that mean the richest and wealthiest people in the world are 100% healthy? No. We've seen evidence. We have percentages and statistics on millionaire and billionaire suicide. So if money was the end-all be-all, there would be 0 millionaire and billionaire suicides. But there still are. So that means, what exactly? That money is a tool, not the end. It's just a means to an end. But the statistic for suicide is higher in people with less net worth as opposed to more. Because money in this world has value. It is used to buy and sell. And so being someone who has less money as opposed to more will stress you out. Period. End of story. And so, if you were going from a purely objective, neuroscientific, psychological standpoint for your own brain health, you would want your finances in order. Now, of course, we believe it goes far beyond that. It ties to your purpose. It ties to divine plan here on planet Earth and in this universe, right? But at a bare minimum, for your brain, you want more and not less. So here is our simple system. We call it the traumatized brain budget. And these are the things that my wife and I have implemented in our life, and it is skyrocketing us, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing that I want to tell you is that on average, and again, this is on average, there are exceptions. We can only go based off the statistics here. On average, when a person or family budgets, they find an extra $1,900 a month. That's not peanuts. $1,900. That's big money. Imagine what you could do with $1,900 right now. That's a rent payment. That's a car payment and an insurance payment. That's a small staycation. That's an investment, right? And over the course of 3 to 6 months of consistent budgeting, we have found that people find and are able to utilize thousands upon thousands of extra dollars. Now, that doesn't come without making the decision to cut certain things from the budget. But again, clarity brings awareness. Awareness brings options. Options, opportunity. Once you see where your money is going, then you're able to make the decisions to lead your money in a different direction. Clarity. I looked at my notes. It's 900 average found per month, not 1,900. So anyway, regardless, this is extremely usable, and we're going to keep it brutally simple. So step 1, the calm check. It takes 2 minutes. First thing you want to do, before numbers, regulate. Inhale. Exhale. Relax the shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Did you feel that when you just took a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth right now? And then, remind yourself, this is information, not condemnation. If your finances are in absolute death and destruction right now, which mine were, you are obtaining information. You're not starting day 1, step 1, to condemn yourself. This is to lift yourself up, to lift your finances up, and to bring it to the light. Truth transforms. Lies deform. So once you finally are in that mind space, I'm informing myself by observing my budget, not condemning myself, you'll be good. Step 2, we call it the 4 buckets. Number 1 is survival. Bucket number 1. What goes in there is housing, utilities, groceries, and transport. So rent or mortgage, your light bill, your water bill if you're in a house, right? Your HOA, your groceries, obviously food, and transport. If you have a car payment, great. If you don't have a car payment, even better. But what goes along with that? Insurance, gas, right? Tag registration, the whole nine. Bucket 2 is stability, right? So that would be your debt, your savings, and your insurance. Very simple. Bucket number 3, stewardship. So this is for giving, investing, and long-term goals. And bucket number 4, my favorite bucket, is the sanity bucket, which is fun money. Small, but planned, non-shaming fun. So you don't put all the money in the sanity bucket. That's where most people put their money. They forget about stability. They forget about stewardship. Sometimes people even forget about survival. They don't pay their rent. They don't pay their lights. And they put all their money in the sanity bucket, in the fun bucket, which becomes insanity. And so, regardless though, a budget without sanity money becomes a relapse plan. You're not doing this to remove joy out of your life completely. That is not the goal here, because remember, we believe joy must be intentional. This is a whole life. We are aiming for wholeness, which means that is also must be reflected in the finances. And step number 3 is one weekly money meeting. 15 minutes. If you're alone, then that's you doing your own weekly budget. But my wife and I, part of a routine, on a Friday night, the week is over, get home from work, we wind down, we do the budget, and we discuss the budget together so that there is no ignorance on either party of the marriage. Now, if you're single or unmarried or not in a long-term committed relationship, it works a little bit differently, right? But everything is laid out, everything is planned out. Then you make your decisions. Regardless, no matter what, have that weekly meeting, even if it's with yourself. And so it makes it that it's not daily stress, it's weekly clarity. You break your finances into week blocks, 4 weeks in a month. Then you can observe a monthly goal. Then you can extend beyond that to a yearly goal, 5-year goal, 10-year goal, right? There's an expression, the poor think in days, weeks, months. The middle class think in a year. The wealthy think in decades. The thing is, you have to build yourself up to that point, right? None of us start there. We all start looking at today, looking at this week. Because when you can build off of that system will support you and elevate you to be able to start making those long-term goals. But you must first start with what's right in front of your face. And so you check the balances, you pay the essentials, you plan the week, and then you adjust. Fairly simple. Step 4, we call it the MVB, or the minimum viable budget. So if you're overwhelmed and you're like, oh my God, I can't do it, it's all falling apart around me, you only do your survival bucket, so your essentials, minimum debt payments, $25 to $100 of savings, and small sanity money. Anything else, optional. So keep the budget simple. Even if you don't want to use our buckets, even if you don't want to use the MVB, the minimum viable budget, keep it simple. Step 5, stop asking this question. What do I feel like doing? like I said earlier, financial chaos comes from chaos within. And sometimes you have to cut through and see money for what it is, a tool, a means to an end. So ask instead, what's true? What's wise long term? And what aligns with whom I'm becoming? If you can start asking those three questions in regards to your finances, which can be very hard to do because that takes a level of self-awareness and looking in the mirror that can be very difficult. And it can be difficult to not spiral into shame, self-judgment, externalization, introjection, the whole nine. But regardless, though, you have to use Skylight wisdom and apply that to your money. So what's true, what's wise long term, and what aligns with who I'm becoming. That's how you want to spend your money or save your money or budget your money, with an aim in mind. It cannot be aimless, otherwise you will hit nothing. All right? And step 6 is build safety through automation. So you reduce your decision load, right? Because again, we make our decisions emotionally with our finances, most people, and then it's doubled down for a traumatized individual because you just feel so much more than a layperson, right? And so you auto transfer to savings on your payday, right? You auto pay your minimums, and you use one card for discretionary spending. Reduce that decision load. So I'll give you a practical example of what I started doing. Now my budget has evolved. The better that my wife and I have gotten with our finances, the more money we are making because my career has advanced, and she also has advanced in her career as well, which eventually, that'll change, and our finances will continue to change, get better, not worse, hopefully, right? But how we first started doing it, so that we brought some semblance of order to the chaos, which my wife, she was very good at budgeting. She was very good at handling her money. I was not. I was absolutely horrible. I was the spender naturally, and she was the saver. And again, that was just the expression of my internal trauma response. And so once I realized and I started to put in the work, and I was able to obtain a plan through mentors and research and growth, obviously it changed. How I first started it was doing this. My income would hit. In our case, I would go to the bank, drop off my check. My bosses are old school and they still do paper checks. So go to the bank, drop off the check, get home, pay survival bucket first, right? So the rent, the utilities, the groceries, and transportation. Without those 4 things, Ramsey Solutions, they call them the 4 walls, right? But we call it the survival bucket. The next thing I would do is I would allocate stability minimums. So I would pay my minimum debts when they would come in, because I had a lot of debt over many years of bad decisions, still paying off some, but way further ahead than we were before. Big time. And then I would allocate stability minimums, right? I would set stewardship small because I knew that I wanted to save. I wanted to save big, but that I realistically couldn't, right? Just the way that my finances and my mental were at the time. So I would put away $10. Very small. Just $10. Because It's getting that rep. You're getting that rep in, that neuroplasticity. You're building that new habit. You're giving yourself the opportunity to choose hope, to choose a future that is worth saving for, even though you don't know what it's going to look like. It's just getting that rep in. $10, man. And then I would assign sanity amount. Tiny, but real. Vanessa and I go to the movies. $50. Right? Eat at home. Bring our own water and snacks. Sneak it in her purse. Right? But $50. Or, go to the beach and for a walk by the beach. $10 for parking. Because the point being that now that you are leading your money, you're putting yourself in the right direction. We're not aiming for perfect right away. It's not going to be. It may never be. I mean, our budget for me right now is as close to perfect as it can be because we miss nothing. Every dollar has a job, and we're saving a lot of money. But at first, it's not about aiming to be perfect. We're aiming for repeatable. It needs to be repeatable. It's progress over perfection, right? Alex Hormozy says, an intelligent coward will never make it as far as a courageous idiot. The idiot, with courage will always go further than the intelligent coward. You don't have to know everything about money right now. You don't have to know about compounding interest, about taking your money out of traditional banking institutions, getting into a high-yield savings account at a credit union. You don't have to learn about CDs. You don't have to learn about stocks, mutual funds. You don't have to learn about, investing in real estate. All of that can come with time. But you want to first get personal financial order, which is the day-to-day, that weekly budget. Then that weekly budget will expand into a yearly budget, will expand into a 5-year budget, will expand into a 10-year budget. And then, before you know it, you're wealthy. And whatever that number is for you, but wealth here at BHI is the capacity to extract maximum joy from every situation. I don't want to just be rich, because a rich person is just a person with a lot of money. I want to be wealthy. Extract maximum joy from any situation. And sometimes money is the answer to do that. Because if I can afford to take me and my wife on a 3-month vacation and tour all over Europe and not worry about the bills at home at all, it's a pretty joyful experience. And so, here's what I want you to understand, especially if you come from divorce or you come from chaos, traumatic childhood growing up, and even if you don't and you're just bad with your finances right now, you're not bad with money. You're rebuilding safety. So the first floor is stability, brick by brick. Clarity replaces cracks. What I want you to do is comment budget and answer. The hardest part of budgeting for me is blank. Now, if you want a unique, tailor-made, personal experience for you, we walk people through the Building a Home framework, all 7 aspects of the house in our Skool community. You will find that link below. You will also find an Amazon affiliate link. If you are interested in reading the books that we read and studying the material from which we have gained our knowledge, then I have a list down there. And of course, that helps us move forward with doing everything that we're doing for you guys. But most importantly, what I want you to know is that number 1, you are not alone. Number 2, you are loved. Number 3, you have the power to change the world. It's just a matter of finding how. It's been Thomas Emmanuel Orms O'Brien. Love you guys.